That's also, I think, one of the beautiful things about really going big. And if you're not there yet, if you're a solopreneur, sometimes it's really easy to kind of fall off track.
You know what I mean? That's the whole thing around the word passion. You know, watch what they do. The word passion isn't enough. The word passion doesn't give you or show you the clarity behind their actions.
If you did that, if you started one day earlier than everybody else, you'd have over $10 million.
Welcome to She Means Millions. I'm Briana, and I'm sitting right here where I always do, next to the two people who built this whole thing, my mom and dad, Sandra and Kym Yancey, the legends, the OGs, and the GOATs themselves, here live and in person. But
we heard about this show.
No. Yeah. You know what, though? We're just going to roll with it.
Okay.
And it's going to be great.
Okay.
Yeah.
We almost never tell you where our episodes come from, but today we want to, because this actually came from you. Somebody on YouTube actually left us a comment that said, I want to hear how you can be intimidated by your own goals. And then the three of us read that and they were like, oh, well, we could talk about that for like a whole episode. So that's what we're going to do. We're going to talk about goals, because here's what nobody warns you about. Like, the goal you prayed for can be the exact goal that freezes you. And you finally write it down, and instead of feeling really lit up about it, the whole body starts to go into like, oh my gosh, this is too big. I don't even know where to start. And you just kind of get paralyzed by your own goals. So that's the promise of today. If you've got a goal sitting in a drawer because it scares you, by the end of this conversation, hopefully you're going to actually know how to move on it and understand why it scares you, and walk away with at least one small thing you can actually do about it. So, Mom, how about you kick us off?
Well, I think I used to do goal setting the wrong way, and that is, I would think of what's my next best move and set that as a goal. And I've learned now, being a business owner for 26 years, and 7 years before that, I had my own consulting practice, that that actually became a more painful way to set goals, because it created this kind of incremental growth. And I almost felt like the cost to run the business was more than the incremental steps I was taking. And there was just way too much month at the end of the money. And I couldn't figure out what was wrong and what I needed to do differently. The person that probably most greatly influenced me, that changed everything, not just a little thing, but everything, was Ken Cragen. And, he was the guy that was the organizer of, at the time, the largest humanitarian effort in the country, called Hands Across America. And he was also the organizer, and was he a producer?
Organizer. And produce it because of the Gambler movies with Kenny Rogers.
Yeah, he managed Kenny Rogers for over 30 years. I mean, big brands. I mean, music in the music industry, right? But he was also the key through line, if you will, for the "We Are the World" song,
right,
with Quincy Jones and Michael Jackson. A great show, documentary on Netflix, by the way. But and Lionel Richie kicks it off and mentions Ken's name in about the first 5 minutes or so. Anyway, Ken was personal coach and became very, very dear friend of mine, and ours, I should say, and of eWomen Network. He came to the conference many years. But what he did for me was, he's the one who really told me what I was doing wrong with my goals and why I was always struggling, even though I was accomplishing them. And he said, you're just doing the ordinary, Sandra. You're doing what most people do. That's the ordinary. And if you really want to be successful in life, and particularly in business, there's just too much. It's too crowded in the ordinary space. And what you need to do is the extraordinary, what he called the impossible. And he said it's actually easier to do the impossible than it is to do the ordinary.
I loved it when he said that. My first conversation with him, after you met him, I met him next. And that line just resonated with me so deeply. The impossible is far easier to do than the ordinary. Like, wow, man, Tell me more,
Yeah. And he said, because everybody's doing what's ordinary.
Yeah.
So you are truly in the sea of sameness. You can't stand out when everybody's doing the same thing. And that rocked my world. And what he taught me was the power of exponential growth. And you could Google this. I mean, some people know, but a lot of people don't realize that if you, took a penny on day one and you doubled it every day for 30 days, you would have $5.3 million. I had to check that out.
Yeah,
That seemed outrageous to
Yeah.
me,
Yeah.
But what Ken said is, what if, Sandra, what if we started on day 0 instead of day 1?
Mm-hmm.
And if you did that, if you started one day earlier than everybody else,
Mm-hmm.
you'd have over $10 million.
Mm.
So you could have 5.3 or you could have over $10 million. One little thing different.
Mm-hmm.
That to me was the light bulb moment that changed everything.
Yeah.
It fundamentally changed the way I looked at my whole life. And so I started, setting very outrageous, extraordinary goals in eWomen Network. And what I kept saying is when everybody's going right, we're going to go left. What's over, Ken? What's on the left? The bank.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's when we started really looking at this whole notion called moonshot. Like, what is your moonshot? What is the thing? And Kym, I love, you always ask our celebrity science clients that come in, one of your first questions when we first sit down is, okay.
Describe for me the champagne moment.
Yeah.
That a moment where you can say, honey, we did it. And you're cracking that bottle of champagne. So what did you do? Like, what brought you to that champagne moment that you cracked that champagne
And you know
to acknowledge?
What we've noticed, and Briana, you've been there, so you know this, because you're a part of all of those strategy meetings, is most people can't describe it.
Yeah,
It's
hard.
amazing how much hesitancy, how much thinking, they're looking up at the sky like they're looking up at the moon.
And there's a part of me that wonders, do they really not know, or are they just too afraid to say
Afraid
it
to
out
claim it?
loud? Like, is it going to sound too big, or am I going to sound vain, or is it going to sound wrong?
Yeah.
Like, I actually was just listening to a podcast the other day, and I loved what she said. And I wish I could remember her name so that I could credit her. It'll probably come to me at like midnight tonight, but I'll be like, dang it, that was her name. But they were talking about social media growth. And she said, yeah, I'm just unapologetic about the fact that I want to be famous. I want to be famous because the more fame I have, the more visibility I have, the more visibility I have, the more impact I have. The more impact I have, the more of a difference I'm making.
Yeah.
And I don't want to feel bad or shameful about the fact that I want fame.
Yeah.
And I was like, wow, that's provocative, because so many women feel kind of like shame around wanting to be like too much.
Yeah.
No woman wants to ever be too much, but to have a big, audacious, hairy goal from a regular person's perspective is going to be too much.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's
our mission, 1 million women getting to $1 million annual revenue, is pretty audacious, and because just a little over 1% of all women ever do it in the United States, which is shameful. And I know that if it's that low in the US, I know it's even lower in many other places. And if we can't figure it out and set the standard and share everything that we know, how are we expecting the world to change? And I got a lot of criticism. I mean, kind of what do you call it? The haters of, she's just all about money and this, and those are the people that don't know me.
Yeah.
And the truth of the matter is money's just a tool. It's not the goal.
Yeah.
It's the tool. What I know about is when you crack that $1 million mark, your life changes. And it changes because now you have the revenue to hire people to do the things that you have no business doing in your business, but you don't have enough money to hire somebody else to do it, and it still must be done. So you're doing it, you suck at it. I mean, it's just the worst. And it's taking way too much time, and it's taking you off the things that really matter. When you make revenue, a tool, then what you realize is that, to your point, Briana, what you just said, when you're if you take $1 million and you put it in your phone right now in your calculator, calculator and you divide it by the average client or the average sale, the average program, that number that you get are the number of people that you have impacted. That's what it's all about. And to me, that's what really fires me up. And that's what I love seeing in so many of our members that we've gotten over the $1 million mark, is that they really do see the fruits of their labor, not only them personally, but the impact they're making on their customer. And that kind of ripple effect just creates this just a crazy momentum. It really does become a movement.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, it's about impact.
Yeah, and what's interesting with AI is a new playbook, because the playbook that we operated with before when it comes to these things is out the window.
Right.
I mean, I think about, Cherie Carter Scott in her book, Life is a Game, These Are the Rules, right?
Yeah.
The rules
Have
are
changed.
different.
Yeah.
They've changed. It's a new playbook, and it's being created, and it's shaping our decisions. And so it's really interesting when it comes, I know for me personally, when it comes to the goals and the kind of goals, because I'm also searching for answers. I'm also searching for perspectives.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? That play into it.
Yeah.
It's I was telling before we started the show, and I said to Sandra, I said, there's no way you had on your master list for the future 26 years ago a women's business network.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Right.
You were an unbelievable consultant. You were out there doing all the consulting.
But I knew what I was struggling with my consultancy. I knew that it was solely dependent on me. And with a bevy of, portfolio of really sexy clients like Coca-Cola and John Deere and Levi Strauss and AT&T and NCR, and the list goes on and on of clients that I had, if I wasn't working, my business didn't grow. I had to really think about how I needed to do things differently so that I could really be present with you, Briana, and your brother Ryland and our family and all of that, and go on vacation and not be beholden to my computer. And now, of course, there's cell phones and all the things. And I just was like, I needed new and different. It wasn't working for me.
Do you remember? This is a little diversion, but do you remember? And I won't mention the name unless you decide to. But remember that guy that came in, and we were reaching to talk to other consultants and other business people who, it was SCORE. The organization was called SCORE.
Oh, yes.
And this guy who had retired,
Mm-hmm.
kind of a business guru.
Yeah.
And I don't know, would you say even my network was 45, 4, 5, 6 years old? How old would you say?
Young, yeah.
And I am telling you, you talk about being blown away. We brought in someone that we thought it was like, let's call it friendly fire. In other words, supposed to be on our side, working with us. And I mean, turned out to be the worst circumstance of advice.
Yeah.
And I'm bringing this up.
Coach or?
Yeah, we brought him in as a business strategist, coach. Okay. We were looking at the next rung, like stepping into something that we had not done before, right? And this person had never run a women's business network, was supposed to be very smart, but really created a toxic environment for us, a toxic situation.
Yeah.
Remember that?
Yeah.
And now, why am I bringing this up? Because along the journey, you do need to reach out and network and engage other people who have been there and done that. But you've also got to be careful.
He hadn't been there and done that. That's the problem. I mean, this was a guy who hadn't figured out his abracadabra, and he was trying to tell me how to work my magic. You know what I mean? I mean, you really got to you got to pay attention to who you're listening to. It was a lesson. You do remember this, where it finally hit me. This is not the right person for us.
Right.
And at the and one particular point, and I can't remember how many meetings we had, but I remember at one particular point, I said to him, "This meeting is over."
Right.
And so was our relationship.
Yeah.
Thank you for your time. And I think he was shocked. And I was like, I gotta. The thing is, Kym, what I've learned is that if normal people aren't rolling their eyes at you, your goals really aren't big enough.
Right.
And that is part of it.
Right.
Is to realize that a lot of people aren't going to get, that is one of the, I think, core elements of being a great entrepreneur.
Right.
Because most people want to keep you safe, and these could be people that you love too, because they don't want to see you get hurt. They don't want to see you fail. But being an entrepreneur is a little bit about living on the edge. It's not playing it safe.
Yeah. I'm bringing this up, and I feel like as we're having this discussion, I'm called to bring things. For some reason, I wanted to bring this situation up because, it's amazing when you have belief. Remember, Sandra, he was telling us, I doubt if you guys are going to be in business 6 months from now.
Yeah.
Stop it. No, he did not.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
No, he did not.
But we were like,
Yeah.
because we had this faith because he came from a respected source, but we realized, man, we're not beating to the same drum beat at all. And as you said, this meeting is over.
Yeah.
But people step into this. They don't talk about this. I'm sure there are people listening to this right now that have been through something where they've gotten some expert or someone's advice.
Or some naysayer.
Or someone who told them something they couldn't do. And we were so clear that, this is our baby. E-Women Network is our baby. And you're not going to tell us,
Yeah.
and we went on to,
I remember when I
go
was
far
scouting
beyond.
attorneys, because we were new, and we knew we needed to get things trademarked and protected and our IP and all of that. And so we didn't have any attorneys. We were looking for attorneys. And I can still remember meeting with an attorney. And do you remember this, Kym? And I was describing the business model, women business owners, connecting, networking, building our businesses worldwide. And the concept was so foreign to this guy, who was a male attorney, and I remember him saying, "I'm here to help you. You're gonna lose your skirt," is what he said to me with this business model. I mean, and it gets scary when you're going to people who have these titles and these positions, and you're coming with your baby idea, and we didn't have it all fleshed out, but we knew what the end game was, right? We had that mission, and it can rock you. That's why I'm telling you, it really does come down to who are you hanging out with? And if you're hanging out with people that aren't about excited for you and aren't about believing in the possibility and willing to make an introduction or show you the way and that kind of thing that helps build you forward, there's a lot of people that just really want to push you off the road, get you off path.
Well, you're
Same
knock
goes
you
for
down.
like people that you work with too. Like, are you working with people that just want to talk about everything that's going to go wrong, or the people that are going to come to brainstorm the possibilities?
Yeah, it makes me think of Zig Ziglar. He had a great line. He says, some people look for what's wrong like they're looking for the prize in the Cracker Jacks box.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Let me find out what's wrong. Got it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, it also it pops up for me just because it's such a thread that I think is so relatable to everyone in life. I'm so clear that I was given another chance at life because God wanted me to be the testimony that if you even have a 1% chance,
Yeah.
you know what I mean?
Oh, yeah.
It's not about the 99% of things that could go wrong or that
Yeah.
won't work out or that are not possible.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's not impossible. If there's a 1% chance, it's possible.
Yeah.
Do you feel like you're drowning in your business? Like you're doing everything and something has to give, but you're afraid it might be you? What if I told you there's a network of over 500,000 women entrepreneurs, all dedicated to supporting each other? A network of women helping women. I'm Sandra Yancey, founder of E-Women Network, and I'm inviting you to join us and become a member. eWomenNetwork.com. We can't wait to meet you. I bet you if I went back to my journals over the years, because we had a mother-daughter journal. Another
Yeah.
conversation.
That
for
would be
another
another
time.
great conversation.
But I've always been a journal writer, and I bet you we could find, I don't know, I would dozens and dozens of times where I have had self-doubt or somebody has questioned, what I was doing and my vision. And I've written a T-chart, and on the right side, I put all the things that could go wrong, which I think is what we often lead with and what people often tell us, remind us of all the risks, right? And then force myself to go to the left side and but what if it went right? And I do think my mother used to say this, and I think it's based on a fable, but I don't actually know for sure, but it comes from somewhere. But my mother used to say, there's, two wolves that live in your head, and they're constantly fighting. They're constantly barking at each other. And one is hope and faith, and the other is fear and despair. And the question is, which one wins?
Yeah.
And the one that wins is the one you feed.
Yeah.
And the interesting thing about hope and fear is that both of them are two things you can't see.
Yeah.
You just have to fundamentally believe. And so, I have written T-charts, I don't know how many times. I mean, we're now expanding and moving to the 4th floor. And we now have a meeting about even implementing phase 2 before phase 1 is even done. Got an email to discuss it today. The three of us have to go down and look at, this new vision that we haven't even told the staff yet. And, it feels risky. But I've now learned to manage that feeling and to ask myself, am I leaning into or acquiescing to fear, or which creates a lot of discomfort, or am I moving into, faith and hope, and I'm feeding the next dream?
Yeah.
And believing that creates a little bit of anxiety, but it's not negative. It's the anxiousness of,
So what do you call it? What would you say to someone here? And here it is, is that you've set a goal and you know what you want to do. So let's go with, first of all, you've set a goal that you want to be more fit. You know what I mean? Like, I think you're getting up at 5 o'clock in the morning. Are you still doing that?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Man, I mean,
I've kind of been bad this past week, but I'm getting back into it.
yeah.
It's okay. But that too is part of it,
It's part
right?
of the journey.
Just because you've broken away from it doesn't mean that it's not legit, it's not real, it's not attainable, and you know what to do.
Yeah.
That's what's so powerful.
But it's lonely. And so that takes, and that's what it is with your goals, right? I mean, you can have these goals, these things that you're doing, but that's a lonely, you're there at 5 o'clock in the morning, it's dark.
No one's getting me out of bed.
No one's pushing you.
And it's really cozy in there. I don't want to move, but I gotta get up. Yeah.
But that's your goal and your focus, and you carry that like you carry your kids, like it's your baby, so to speak. You know what I mean? And if you aren't taking care of that, who would you suggest should? Like, who's going to do that? But I think, when I look at goals and I look at my own, I have to admit, earlier in my life, I was kind of afraid of goals. I don't know what it represented to me. I don't know if it represented, man, if you don't do this, you're
a failure.
You're a failure, right?
Yeah.
And so I think if there's such a thing, I just did things, but I didn't attach the word goal to them.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like when I decided I wanted to play drums, I remember seeing a basement band playing. I so loved that drummer back there and the cymbals and everything they were hitting. In that moment, I knew I'm going to be a drummer. There was an absolute resolute, I'm going to do that. So the goal in doing that was, let me take some drum lessons. Let me try that. Let me try some different things. Let me get in a band. Let me, audition. All of a sudden I'm networking.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Who's got a band? Who needs a drummer? And you're networking to do that. Yeah. But it's an incredible thing how your goals can scare you. They can.
They should scare you. I mean, they should scare you.
It's kind of like when we declared in January that we were going to 10x in 1,000 days. It's a big freaking scary goal.
And somebody told me less than 1%. Here we are with the 1% of all businesses can really do that.
Yeah, but we 1%ers, honey.
Yeah.
In here. Okay. But it is scary to do that. And it's going to be, there is like in a level of, fear of the embarrassment of if you fall short, particularly when you've made it public.
Yeah.
But that also is the fire and the accountability for you to make sure that you're really on track. And so then reverse engineering those goals kind of comes down to some of the science that I think I think the comment on YouTube was really hoping that we would get into a little bit more. So,
Mm,
I mean, we've shared a lot of really great stories, and I don't want to lose that. But I do think it would be really valuable for the listeners to hear our process to goal
okay.
setting and how
Okay.
we reverse engineer the goals. Because if you have a huge moonshot, a huge goal, a big I did it champagne moment,
Mm-hmm.
that gets scary for people and hard for them to vocalize. I think because of the fear of not knowing how to get there, and
Yeah.
maybe this just sounds too out of reach. But once you know what it actually is not that hard once you understand it's just a matter of now reverse engineering.
Correct.
And we are really excellent at reverse engineering our goals and
Yeah.
making them a reality.
I would say it's one of our core strengths for
Yes.
sure. So let's talk about the process a little bit, can we?
Yeah, let's do it.
So
Let's
one
do
of the
it.
things that I learned from Ken, the whole example I was giving about exponential growth with the penny,
Yeah.
and starting a day early. So we start our goals. We measure our company. Our fiscal year is January to December, like many, many other companies, not all, but most. And but we actually perform 13 months.
Yeah.
And not 12, because we launch our goals December
December
1st. And so that means that we're starting with our executive team. We're starting to identify everybody comes to the table with what they think are the top 5 things we should be doing for the following year. And everybody gets voice in terms of what they think it is. And there's a lot of overlap, which is what's really cool.
Yeah.
And then there's some outliers kind of thing. But we have found that spurs great conversation. And then a lot of times we have to take away and do a little bit of, investigating and checking and thinking and all of that kind of thing. We come back in October and we identify the goals. We know what our 5 goals are, no more than 5. We run this business 5 goals a year, and they are stretch goals. They're not comfortable goals. They are stretch. And so by October, we name them and we know exactly what they are. And then we start saying, okay, so given these, what are the things that we need? What are the resources? What are the people? What is the technology? What are the things that we're going to need to support these goals? And we have those identified in November because those impact budget, right? So we need to make sure that we are generating the revenue in order to pay to help our goals be supported, because you just can't say your goals and then think you're going to effort your way through it.
Right.
It takes money to make money. So it helps us focus on the things that really make the cash register ring in order to fund the goals. And then we launch December 1. So we are in action mode when a lot of people, scary enough to me, are talking about, people aren't thinking about business. It's the end of the year. It's the holidays. What? It's crazy to me. It's the best time to be, launching. And, if you want to get ahead of your competition, if that's important to you, a lot of them do start pulling back and getting a little sleepy because they're partying and enjoying the holidays. And I think we enjoy the holidays like everybody else too. I mean, it's not like you're, substituting one for the other. You're just so laser focused on how you're spending your time, right? So we establish those goals. Now, what we take those 5 goals, once we've identified all the resources and everything, we know what they are in November. Now what we do is we break them into chunks. So reverse engineer, because you're right, Briana, that's exactly what we do. We reverse engineer. So you take your 5 goals. Now you can't work them all at the same time. There's just not enough bandwidth in your energy, in yourself, in your team, in your day.
In your resources,
In
financially
right,
even.
Right. And a lot of times, certain goals, some have to be done before you can launch the next one. So you have to take a good look at them and you have to ask yourself, if I could break these into quarterly benchmarks, what would I do? This now starts giving order to your goals, right? What do I need to do quarterly to get there? Because it's so important to me. Nothing's worse than having a goal and saying, I'm going to have something by the end of, the 3rd quarter, the end of September, and September 1 comes and you're going, I haven't started that yet, which is easy to happen.
Yeah.
But if you know what your quarterly goals are, then you know what you've got to be doing, in, July and then August and then September, so that you're so you take those quarterly goals. now you reverse engineer them again. You say, okay, these are my quarterly goals. So now what are my monthly milestones? What do I have to do in month 1 versus month 2 versus month 3, so that you're making progress and trekking along, and you're moving now with grace and ease into that quarterly goal. Then you take those monthly milestones, and how many weeks are there in a month? 4 weeks. So now you're taking those monthly milestones and you're breaking them into 4 chunks. We call them your weekly deliverables. So what do you have to do in week 1 of the month versus week 2 versus week 3 versus week 4, so that you slide into the end of that month with grace and ease, having accomplished, and you're not at the 26th of the month going, oh crap, I said I was going to do this month. I haven't even started. That's how people get derailed, right? And then we take those weekly deliverables and we turn them into daily priorities, right? So, and your daily priorities, we run our business. We have a meeting Monday, Wednesday, and Friday with the whole team, so that everybody hears what everybody's doing, and everybody shows up and they talk about, here's the one thing they're doing today that's making the cash register ring, one thing that they're doing that's hitting a looming deadline, and one thing they're doing that's hitting a
moving the business forward.
So if you do 3 things a day, that's 15 things a week. I mean, you shouldn't have to be working a ton of extra time to be able to do that if you're uber focused every day on your 3 things. And, you know, you accumulate 15 over the month is 60 things. I'm telling you, we know you can run a multi-million-dollar global business doing it just that way. And I think people make it so complicated, they don't even trust that it's that easy. It takes discipline. It's not hard. This is not hard. It's discipline.
Yeah.
That's what it is. There's not difficulty in this. It's just the developing the discipline.
And the clarity.
Yeah.
You know, get rid of the stuff that is just superfluous. I mean, really clarify it so it's crystal clear for everybody.
Yeah.
You know, what I love about what we have in place, which was led by you, by the way, is it's kind of like, you know, you tell someone that it's Sally's birthday. We can all sing Sally's birthday. Because we all know it. So your team needs to know it. What I love about our mission and our vision is helping 1 million women each achieve $1 million in annual revenue. I mean, everybody can recite that. That's a part of the E-Women Network culture. You see what I'm saying? Simple, but clear.
And people think, oh gosh, well, what level of you know, entrepreneur are you working with? I mean, we've got examples of, you know, people who've been paying themselves under $30,000 a year running a landscaping business that's now making millions within, you know, 5 years. And now with everything moving faster, I think we're going to shrink the 5 years to the 3 years. We've got people that have been living in their car, you know, starting a business, a turf company that's now making millions. I mean, yes, we have the people that have been making 2 million that we've taken to 12 million, you know, but we have worked with people who are willing, who are just tired of the struggle, who are willing to adapt a system that's proven across every industry. We've helped women that have had 1, 2 restaurants scale to 5 and on plan to 10. I mean, no matter what the industry is, what the business is, you know, we have taken coaches, you know, to the $1 million mark who've been at the, you know, low 6 figures. I mean, it is a system, and people want to jerry-rig the system,
right?
You know, and if you just would accept the system, adapt the system, and push through the system and get the help, because there's chunks where it gets hard. But we've talked about, you know, there's 3 doors in front of you. There's success, there's being broke, and there's being unfulfilled. And guess what's underneath each one of those? Hard. Everything is hard. So you got to pick your hard.
Everything is hard. Yeah.
It's hard being successful. It's also harder, in my opinion, being broke, because I've been there too. And it's just the hardest getting derailed, doing something you have no business doing, because you got to make the cash register ring, and you couldn't make it in your business. So you're going off doing something else that you know you shouldn't be doing. And that's got to be the hardest.
Yeah.
So it's hard. There's no easy way out. It's hard.
Yeah.
Right.
Most people just don't want to work that hard.
It's true.
Most people don't.
It's exactly. You're a goat. That's exactly what Mark
don't want
Cuban
to put
says.
in the work.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? That's the whole thing around the word passion. You know, watch what they do. The word passion isn't enough. The word passion doesn't give you or show you the clarity behind their actions. You know what I mean? So it's like what my dad told me, and he got it from somebody. But what you do speaks so loud, I can't hear a word you're saying. I'm paying attention to what you actually do versus what you say you're going to do.
I feel like it helps to stay motivated when you have a payroll.
Yeah.
Because if you're not hitting your goal, you're not going to be
I'm looking
able to
up
pay
right
people.
now in the studio, and I'm looking at the number of tiles we
you
have
do
in the
that.
2 feet. I do.
Everywhere. It's the weirdest. It's another level of Sandra's OCD coming out right now. This woman looks up at the ceiling tiles, counts the tiles, and is calculating the square footage and calculating the cost per square footage and how much this space costs.
I do.
And you do it everywhere.
Everywhere.
It is crazy. I'm like, wow.
Because I pay for that.
Yeah.
I mean, it's like crazy. Every now and then we're in our lobby area, and now that we're building this really big lobby with a barista and everything,
you're like, this is like not functional space. We're paying a lot of money for this space. That's not like working for us or making money for us, Yeah.
Exactly. It's a funny thing. But when you do have to make payroll and you do have to pay for your space, it does help you get really laser focused.
And so that's also, I think, one of the beautiful things about really going big. And if you're not there yet, if you're a solopreneur, sometimes it's really easy to kind of fall off track because I've been there too.
Yeah.
And that's where having the community and people around you and an accountability group, whether it's CEO Plus, like a membership where you're not only around people who are movers and shakers and doing the thing, but also getting the mentorship and the coaching from somebody who's already where you want to be. It's so important that you make sure that we're not meant to be in isolation. I am. This isn't a Christian show by any means, but I am a Christian. I go to church on Sunday, and my pastor shared something that was so valuable that I think it's not even a Christian belief. It applies to everyone, but it is so true. The enemy does his best work when you're in isolation.
It's crazy.
When you're isolated, that's when you get in your head. That's when you get into anxiety. That's when you get into depression. But when you get around other people who are believers in their dream and going for it, it's really hard to stay there.
Oh, it so is. It so is. I love this conversation. It does tie to goals. It actually does tie to goals. And can I say something provocative that I know might stir some things up?
Yeah.
But I feel like I've noticed a difference between men and women in one way, and that is men are very clear on who their accountability buddies are, like reporting in. This is what I said I was going to do, and this is what I did.
Yeah.
And women mess that up repeatedly. They turn their accountability buddies into coaching sessions, advising each other on things. And I find that to be pretty problematic. It's one of the things that I've really honed in eWomen Network in my career of building eWomen Network. And that is, I don't listen to the people that are close around me. I listen to the people who are close to where I want to be. And there's often, for me, a huge gap. That's why I'm such a believer. I have multiple coaches. I belong to multiple masterminds. I mean, I am just a believer of getting close to the people who are where I want to be and using the people that are close around me to keep me accountable. And there's a big difference between the two. Don't be taking advice from people who aren't where you want to be, because everybody's got an opinion. They're like elbows. Everybody's got at least two, and you're taking advice from people who aren't where you want to be. So why? I mean, really just think about it. And so there's a big difference, I think, between what you were saying, coaching and masterminding, mentoring, femtoring, and
accountability.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And accountability. They are two things I think often get mixed up in the same bowl.
And they're both important.
Yeah.
It's not to say that they're not.
Yes.
They're both important because you need people that are going to keep pulling you along when you're starting to run out of steam a little bit, and then you get a win and now you're refueled again.
Yeah.
And then it starts to get hard again. You're running out of steam and then you get another win and then it's sitting, but sometimes you need people to keep pulling you along right before that next little pop happens,
I feel like I think of it as my tank is low on gas.
Yeah.
You work and you work and you work and you get depleted, and then you get around the people up here and they fill your tank up.
Yeah.
And I'm like, ready to go. Okay. Kind of thing.
Yeah.
Yeah. I got to say, I absolutely love the CEO Plus program the way it's structured with that first Monday, that Momentum Monday, where you really teach and share insights and wisdom that you've got, which is deep. I think I've said this to you before. Your discipline is unbelievable. And you've cultivated that. I mean, you've always had it, but working together as a couple, because I've got my world within even network in terms of what I do.
Mm-hmm.
But those times, those late nights, those Sunday evenings, where you're at your computer and, because you're doing research that you started a couple of days before, and you're fine tuning it for, your prep for that is just phenomenal.
Yeah.
And I love it. I ask people all the time, what is your distribution method for your wisdom? Like, how's it being distributed? And people really struggle with that, Well, every now and then I might do a YouTube video, or every now and then I might show up at a networking event. You know what I'm saying? But no one's going to distribute your information better than you.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Well, Briana, and talk about the relevance of that. Look at the discipline that you've put into what you're doing on social media, and look at the skyrocketing results that you're getting.
Yeah. And that kind of ties back to the goals, right?
Yeah.
So the backstory as to why I've gotten so serious about growing my Instagram account is that I want a book deal. And I have a contact who's an agent in LA that I knew from my acting days, and I sent her a proposal, and she offered to pitch it to a couple of publishers, and their number one feedback is she doesn't have large enough of an audience. So I said, bet.
Exactly.
Bet. Like, if that's what it's going to take, then that's what it's going to take. So let me grow this audience, So I decided that this year I want to scale to 100,000 followers. I set the goal, the big goal, and I'm pushing for it. And I've gotten so clear on how I'm going to show up, but I've learned, you're not going to get there by just posting. The greats are posting, like the greats are posting sometimes 4 times a day, sometimes even more. I'm not quite there, but I can at a minimum make sure I'm posting 2 times a day. And it has been really hard for me to keep up with it.
Yeah.
It's really not an easy thing to do, but it has taken a tremendous amount of commitment to the goal and discipline. And I know why I'm doing it.
Yeah.
It's not for the vanity play. It's for the vision of the bigger dream, And I think that having the clarity of why you want the goal that you want, and then reverse engineering, how is it that you're going to get there? And then having the discipline to stick with it even when it's hard, because sometimes it's hard. And
there's that hard word.
It is. It really is.
I really take exception to what that agent said to you, because your eWomen Network audience is separate. It's a whole different audience.
They don't care.
Yeah.
It's like, that's the thing, is like, and people downplay the importance of social media. Well, I've got the email list. It's like, that's great. And you need also the outward visible credibility.
Yeah.
Because
the key word was and. Not but.
It's not but. No, you need your own email list. No doubt about it. And if you're not converting your social media followers into your email list, you're probably going to get screwed, because one day Instagram is going to all go away. It's all going to go. Like, it just is, And I think it's important to make sure that you own your audience at the end of the day. Own the contact to your audience, not somebody else. But when people are scouting on if you're legit online, they don't know the size of your email list. When people are trying to validate, is this the person the real deal? They can't see that you've got 100,000 people that you can.
So I didn't know that you were looking for a book deal. No. And from a publisher versus self-publishing or whatever, it's a whole different things. But that ignites a whole different thing in me, because I work with sponsors.
Yeah.
And so showing the value and the power of eWomen Network to these sponsors is something that I love doing. You know what I mean? So you've kind of lit a fire.
What you do is you go to our competitors on your proposals.
Yeah.
You say, and here's our competitors, and this is their, and you compare us.
Yeah.
To our competitors. It's been part of your strategy. Yeah. I mean, these are really juicy questions about how do you.
It's a whole different conversation. You know what I mean? Because them are fighting words to me. You know what I mean? Wait.
You know what I want to do?
You don't know who we are.
Yeah.
Let's talk about who you're working with.
I love that about you.
Let's compare what they're doing to what we're doing.
I love that.
And the network.
You know what? We got to get to work. You know why? Because she does not just mean business right now, honey.
She
means
millions.